ever sat at the table trying to explain the same math problem over and over, only to have your child look at you like you're speaking another language, or maybe they're fidgeting, staring out the window, or talking your ear off instead of focusing? Friend, it might not be a discipline issue or even a curriculum issue. It might simply be a learning style issue. When you learn to recognize how your child learns best, the entire homeschool rhythm can shift. Today, we're going to talk about how to spot your child's learning style, what to do with that, how to use it to bring more peace, confidence, and joy into your homeschool. Hey, homeschool mom. I'm Erica Sagert on the Intentional Homeschooler podcast with more actionable steps and encouragement for your homeschooling journey so you can confidently and intentionally homeschool your children without sacrificing your sanity. Grab a pen and paper, your favorite cup of brew, and let's get started. When moms come to me feeling frustrated, telling me their child just doesn't seem to be learning or that every day feels like a struggle, my first question is often, do you know how your child learns best? We live in a world where traditional classrooms are designed for one style of learning. But at home, we have this beautiful opportunity to tailor education to the unique way God designed each child. And when we do that, it's like something clicks. The child who seemed distracted suddenly engages. The lessons that felt like pulling teeth become smoother. It's not about finding a perfect formula. It's about understanding their wiring. I'll never forget when I realized just how differently my own kids absorbed information. Caleb used to sit in the rocking chair during our family Bible time, and he wasn't just rocking a little, he had to rock that chair. My husband thought he wasn't listening, and honestly, I did too at first. But here's the thing. When we'd ask him questions after our Bible time, he could tell us exactly what had been read in detail. He wasn't distracted. The movement is what helped him focus. Caleb is very kinesthetic to this very day. Sitting still would have actually made it harder or impossible for him to listen. Once we realized that he needed to move, we stopped fighting the rocking chair. We leaned into it. He listened, he learned, and everyone was a lot less frustrated. And then there's Andrew. He's the one who processes everything through words. He listens deeply, and then he talks it out afterward. If he can verbalize it, whether that's through explaining or storytelling or just chatting it through, he owns the information. I remember when he was a little guy in the back of the seat, before he had actual English words, he just had toddler babble. He would just be in the back seat, like telling a story. So that was a very early cue that I had that he was my auditory verbal processor or learner. My boys are so different. If I tried to teach Andrew the same way I taught Caleb or vice versa, it just wouldn't have worked. That realization changed how I approach every subject in our homeschool. And not only every subject, but the method by which I taught that subject. So you don't have to hand your child a test to figure this out. The best way to identify learning styles is to simply watch. Pay attention to what they do naturally when no one is directing them, just in their playtime, or like I did, in the car driving around town. Pay attention. If your child's in the back seat, just babbling away, talking to you about everything they're seeing, you probably have a verbal processor on your hands. If you have a child who just is always moving and running and, rocking in the rocking chair, you might have a kinesthetic learner. So just really pay attention and study those kiddos of yours. Pay attention to what they do naturally. So like when nobody's directing them, right? Just in real time. Do they gravitate toward drawing, maybe building, listening to stories? Watch them play with others, too. Look at how they communicate with their friends, how they approach their work. Those everyday moments are your little clues. So here are a few common learning tendencies. So first, I'll talk about auditory learners. So auditory learners often talk things out. They have a lot of words. They repeat information out loud, and they love read alouds or discussions. So not only do they like to talk it out with their words, they also do very well with listening to information, like maybe books on tape or things like that. So definitely the verbal, the talking, but also the listening. And then another major learning style is visual learners. And remember, these visual learners remember what they see. So they like charts and lists and visual order. Then we have kinesthetic learners. So as I shared with Caleb, these learners thrive when they can move, build, touch, or physically engage with whatever they're learning. Sometimes, if you're in a quiet place and, for example, at Hope Learning Center, we have classes where it's a classroom full of other students, so it can be challenging to let them move so much because it can be really distracting to the other kids. So maybe it's distracting even to the other kids just in your house. Give them a quiet fidget toy of some kind. Even that will engage them. And sometimes you'll see them bouncing their leg. Find a way to let them move that's not going to distract everyone around them, because obviously, usually, homeschooling, we're doing it with a few kids. And so you don't want it to distract your auditory learner, for example, because they might, or visual, they're going to see that and it's going to distract them. So give them something that's quiet. Give them something that's not going to distract the other kiddos that you're homeschooling. But remember, too, that none of us actually fit perfectly into one type of learning style. Most of us lean into one direction, but we can all learn in multiple ways. So your job isn't to label your child, okay? It's to notice their leanings. And I would also add that it's important to keep in mind what your primary learning style is, because you will teach that way too. So pay attention to what types of lessons you are drawn to, or think back to how you learn best. And just, trial and error. Try these out and see what will work best for your children. When we begin to see our children through the learning style lens, you can make simple, thoughtful adjustments that are going to create a much better learning environment. They will be able to learn better. So specific ideas for your kinesthetic learners, I mentioned this a little bit before, but give them a fidget toy, or let them bounce on an exercise ball during lessons, or even just use the exercise ball as a chair. Give them something to do with their hands while they learn. For your visual learners, post their to-do list on the wall where they can see it clearly. You're going to want to use color. You're going to want to use charts and even pictures to break things down. Checking tasks off visually gives them a sense of progress and clarity. Quite frankly, a to-do list for everyone to see, no matter their learning style, is helpful. But if they lean toward visual learning, they're going to get even more benefit out of it. And then for our auditory learners, let them talk through their work. You probably want to use some audio books, read aloud, or encourage them to explain what they've learned to you out loud. Also, you can let them use the voice memo app or use some other way to record them. If they go through some questions, maybe they can record their answers to the questions and give them to you that way instead of having to write them all out. Since they're verbal processors, it will be easier for them to record their answers instead of forcing them to write it out, or just sit down with you and have a conversation and let them answer the questions out loud. Not everything has to be written out. It's a good way for you to interact with your child and to take them through their assignment. So these, as you can see, are not massive curriculum overhauls. They're just small little tweaks that honor the way your child is naturally wired. So I talked about kinesthetic, visual, and auditory. Those are the main learning styles. There's some nuances and some specifics that would fit under those, and I'm sure there's other learning styles technically, but I see those as kind of the three main learning styles. So one of the biggest mistakes I see when parents figure out their child's learning style, they want to box them in. Oh, he's a visual learner, so we can only do that kind of activity. That's not what this is about. You lean into their strengths, but you also gently stretch them. So life is not always going to cater to one learning style. And part of our role as homeschool moms is to help them grow in flexibility. So also, here's another big one. We naturally teach through our own learning style. If I'm a visual teacher, I will create lists, charts, handouts, because that's what works for me. But if my child is kinesthetic, that approach might not work so well. So keep an eye on how your own style influences your teaching. Learning styles are a tool, not a rule book. Start by simply observing your child. Look for their leanings. Make it small. Make intentional adjustments that honor how they learn. And then give yourself and them grace to grow along the way. You don't need to get this perfect. You just need to take the next right step. We're all a work in progress, and every small step you take to better understand your child will bring more peace into your homeschool. If any of this resonates with you, you have further questions, or you want to find out about the work I do at Hope Learning Center, book a virtual coffee chat with me. The link to my calendar is in the show notes. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as right here, where a brand new episode will drop every other Thursday. Until next time, you've got this, Mom.